What's up, guys? This is Matt Dollar, and I'm here with round one of the Minnesota Majestic here in Minneapolis, well, East Bethel, Minnesota, just north of Minneapolis. And the course today is Blue Ribbon Pines, and we're playing the Majestic layout, which is 22 holes, par 73. The normal course layout is 27 holes. So today we are going to be watching myself, Matt Dollar.
Matt Dollar from Atlanta, Georgia, and I play for Team Latitude 64.
And these other guys coming up here after me. So hole number one, I decided to go with a thumber. This hole comes in right at 300 feet. I'm going with a moonshine spark. And I'm trying to make sure I go ahead and expose the flight plate a little bit so it doesn't take a big pan. And
Drummond,
able to drop it down.
Minnesota, and sponsored by Discraft.
Sorry if I talked over him. That's John Drummond, sponsored by Discraft, and he is a local. John is old school. See that 4-digit PDGA number? He goes with the hyzer.
Dutch Napier from Roseboro, Kentucky, sponsored by Privette.
And now we have Dutch Napier, one of my homeboys from the south, out of Kentucky, sponsored by Prodigy Disc. And Dutch does a pretty good looking shot here. Nice drive.
Mitchell Privette from Cottage Grove, Minnesota, sponsored by Prodigy Disc.
And here's my boy Mitch, who I've been playing most of my practice rounds with here in Minnesota. Mitch is from Cottage Grove, which is just south of the Twin Cities. And Mitch goes with the driver here. Pretty good shot. And so everyone's going to be putting for birdie, which is nice to start this round out. Really want to get hole 1 and hole 2 before you get tossed into the fire here at Blue Ribbon Pines. Mitch is able to knock his birdie putt in there. And we'll move on to John, who's got a little bit of a straddle putt. Kind of a weird angle. Only about a 20-footer maybe, but it is a little tough because he has a straddle. And he's kind of a hyzer putter, hyzer to straight, and that tree totally blocks the hyzer. So it looks like he tries to commit to hyzering on that right side and overcommits. So Dutch is going to make his 2. I'm going to knock my judge in there for my birdie. And we will move on to hole number 2 with 3 of us at 1 under, and John will be hanging out at even. So hole number 2, what I feel like is another must-get hole, is just under 300 feet, probably 280 feet, and I go with an Opto Spark. The difference between that spark and the spark I threw on hole 1, the Moonshine Spark, is the green Opto Spark has a little less stability. So for me, when I throw a thumber, it doesn't pan as far left before it comes back right. So on a shorter hole like this, where there is some trouble to the left, I want to go with something that's not going to hold that pan extra long. So Dutch went with the mid-range, and now Mitchell will too. Mitch is throwing an M4 here. And on this hole, if you throw the backhand, I feel like you don't really want to hyzer flip it too much. You more want to throw it straight at that left side with something flippy and let it turn to the right. Kind of like John was trying to do, but he didn't really have the ante on it. Both those guys kind of had a little too much hyzer on their release. And Mitch called a bad kick. He went even further left, so he's kind of got to poke through the jungle here. And he catches a tree, but it will get him inside the circle. And John's just going to lay up. So we're going to go to Mitch. I believe Dutch is probably about 15 feet, and so am I. You can see Mitch is just inside the circle there. There's a white circle painted here for the 10-meter line, which is 33 feet. And really, that putt looked pretty good from Mitch. On a disc catcher, that's going to catch every time, or at least 9 out of 10. But these old Mach 3s, or these new Mach 3s rather, they have that S hook at the top, and it's exposed, whereas the disc catcher bogey band kind of blocks that out. And it just did not accept Mitch's putt. So we skip the normal hole 3 and move on to hole 4 on the normal course, which is hole 3 in this layout. And it's a par 4, and it is the signature hole here. Coming in a little over 400 feet and just a dead tunnel the entire way. And boy, it is hard to hit that fairway. I threw my beat up first run mace and was able to pure it. I was really excited about that because I actually didn't throw any warm-up shots before the round. I just putted a little bit and stretched out really good. So that was my first backhand of the day, and I couldn't be any happier with it. So Dutch does a pretty good one. He gets a little off the fairway, but he does kick back at the end. John, however, pulls his to the right and kicks right. So generally that's just not good at all, looking at like a 6. Mitch does a pretty good looking line, turns it over just a hair too much. So I don't know if you could hear John, but when he kicked right, he mentioned hoping that he got into that other fairway, and he actually did. So we're looking at a different fairway here, and I believe for this tournament layout, it's hole number 6 or 7, par 3, another tight par 3 coming back. So he tries to play up that fairway but catches another tree. And at this point, he's basically committed into playing that fairway. He can't really pitch back to our fairway without costing himself some more strokes. Pretty good sidearm there. Good work from our camera lady Carla by getting over there and spotting that for John. So we're going to go back to Dutch, who just throws his putter right up the middle. So Dutch's drive leaked a bit, but it did kick him back in the fairway where he was able to just throw it right up the middle. Dutch is very precise with those putters. So we got Mitch, who threw a good shot and just finished off the right side, but he does have a shot here. He's taking a flippy putter, and this is an amazing shot from Mitch. Throws it right up there, inside 20 feet. So John's still over there on that other fairway, but he throws a spike hyzer here, and as you see, it landed just outside of the rocks. I've got my throwing judge in my hand, and I'm just going to push it right up the middle. Catch a little rock, a little kick away, but that's fine. Inside 20, putting for birdie. It's got me happy. Dutch is looking at a jumper. Oh man, Dutch has got a clean jump putt. I don't know if you saw my video from the Vibram Open Putting Finals, which was an 8-man match play event, and Dutch and I played in the finals there. So Dutch made all these crazy jump putts leading into the finals, and I was able to make all but one of my putts in the finals. So Dutch is a great putter, and he's just a great guy. I love playing with Dutch. He's very positive, and always roots for everyone. So I don't think I've ever heard anyone say a bad word about Dutch Napier. So we're going to move on here to hole number 4 in this layout, and I went with a thumber with a felon because it usually flips really quick. However, it did not this time, and I threw a pretty poor shot. Now there's OB on the left side of this hole the entire way. This used to be 2 different holes, and they connected them together. So if you're playing it safe-ish, you just try to throw to the other tee pad. Mitch is a local, and he's got some local knowledge. So he goes with a, I believe it's a mid-range, and he flips it over and turns it hard right to give himself a better look. And it kind of takes the OB out of play. You have to play through the woods instead of maybe having a shot in the open over the OB. But anyway, so John goes OB with his roller, and I am going to have to throw a thumber, and I'm avoiding the OB, so I just throw it straight into the woods to see how far I can get and maybe have an upshot to try and save par. So Mitch was on that right side, and he went for one of the, I guess you would say, actual fairways on this one. It's very rare that you have a really good fairway when you combine 2 holes. So he goes for the fairway, catches a tree, and kicks out of bounds. So really tough break for Mitch there. And John, after going to be on the tee shot, just throws back to the fairway. Dutch throws another ball in sidearm. So 2 great sidearms from Dutch on this one. And you know, he really didn't get aggressive on that second one, and that was a smart play on his part. I'm going to go with a hatchet thumber to try and hit this tiny gap. And I told Carla before I threw it, as long as that branch right in front of me doesn't really affect it too much, it should be good. But it caught that branch and just pushed it a hair right and caught the edge of a tree. So I'm looking at a 5 at this point. So Mitch is trying to save one over here after throwing a second shot OB. He's got a long look. Oh wow, great bid from Mitch. Gives it a great look, hits it dead center, just a hair low. So he's going to be dealing with a bogey there. And if I don't make this, I got a bogey myself. I don't really have much of a line, so I'm just going to try to hyzer putt it around that tree. Man, it looked good, but I pretty much knew out of my hand it didn't have a chance. I had to almost hit that tree to make it. So Dutch is got a weird looking little hyzer putt here, and he sticks it in there. Nice putt from Dutch. If you're keeping track at home, Dutch has birdied every hole so far. So after my turkey 3 birdies in a row to start the round, I give it back with a bogey. I believe John takes a par there, and Mitch is going to be settled with a 5. And we will move on to another par 4, where you want to throw about 320 feet before you get to a lake, and then you have like another 320, 330 feet after that. This is a really cool hole. Dutch just absolutely pures this drive, and I'm pretty sure he threw a putter. I'm not 100% because it went really far, but it looked like a putter. So I'm throwing my beat up first run mace here. I just hit it on a little hyzer and watch it stand up. If you hear Mitch say, I made the Mando, which means I went through the tiny gap between 2 trees down there before the short tee, or the drop zone rather. So I get a little local knowledge there. Mitch pulls his just a hair, and he catches the tree on the right side of the fairway and kicks right. So after a tough break on the last hole, Mitch is going to have to get his scramble game on this one if he wants to save some par. So from this point, all you really can do is just jump putt up and try to give yourself a good position. Not the best jump putt from Mitchell, but he catches a rock right there and it kicks him out to the open. He's probably got 360, 370 feet to the pin from here. He lets it go a little left, but he gets on up there. He's probably going to have a jumper from there to try and save that par, which is a 4. John straightens out a shot there. It's looking like it's going to pull a little bit to the right, but it kicks that tree and kicks back in putt range. Now it's my turn, and I just pick up that mace and go right with it again, straight up that right side to put myself inside the circle. And if you couldn't tell Dutch was playing good before, you can tell now as he threw his drive right onto the edge of the drop zone. It's like if you want better footing, you couldn't ask for it. And Dutch throws a great shot there. It's going to get him up there for a short birdie putt. In fact, he asked for a little bit of skip or slide or whatever, and it got it. And he is parked. So Mitch has got to hit this to save par. Big putt from Mitch right there. And that's, I believe, the second or third putt we've seen outside the circle already in this group. This is definitely a group of very good putters. John takes a straddle putt and knocks it in there. There is another tree that you can't see blocked right here, making him straddle putt. So I was just past it, so I was able to just tap it in there with my normal stance. And Dutch is going to finish us up here with a park job tap in. So our group, after Mitch's great scramble, will go 3 down on this hole. And that's going to be tough for any group to beat. Now we move on to this super tighty. I believe it's 370 feet, slightly uphill, super tight tee shot. I go with the baseline mace here, the beat up first run, because I just want to hit this first gap. Just want to make sure I get a 3 on this hole. This is not a hole that you have to birdie. John goes with the driver, throws a nice soft hyzer flip. I tell you, John has some sneaky power. He doesn't look like he throws hard at all, and he throws with hyzer, but the disc just comes up and goes. He must be just super smooth or something. So Mitch hyzers a bit too early and kicks to the right. And he's going to have to go with a thumber up shot here. Actually a pretty good shot from Mitch, but got pinned high, but just too far right. My little upshot there, I had a chance to go through everything, but it was very dicey, so I decided to just take the smart play and just flip it around and hope that maybe I made it. John with a pretty nice jumper there, just a little low, hits center cage. And now we're looking at Mitch, who's pinned high, probably 35, 40 feet to the right, maybe 30 feet to the right. He didn't have a very clean lie. So he rattled some chains, but unfortunately he's going to come away with a bogey. And Mitch is struggling just a little bit here at the beginning. Dutch birdies this one. Huge shocker. Dutch with another birdie. And he is just on fire at this point. This was a really fun round to watch. The whole group was just great to play with. Everybody's cool. Nobody gets upset. And we got to see tons of great putts. So this is the shortest hole in the layout, coming in at 155 feet. It is a tight gap, and there's OB probably about 25 feet behind the basket. So you can't get too cute on this one. And as you'll see, I'm just going to go with a jump putt, which gives me no chance at acing it. But I know that I can jump putt, hit the gap, and turn it over where there's an even bigger gap, and give myself a putt inside the circle. So that's all I went with. And as you can see, our local on the card, Mitchell Privette, is also going to jump putt this because he knows what's up. So some jump putts happen, and John is the only one that hit a tree, but he did catch that one in the middle. He's basically going to have to pitch up here. You know, it's really tough to just take your medicine on a 155-foot hole. But John, he goes about it smart here and just chips one up. He doesn't try to get too greedy. And he throws a very nice shot. Very nice little putter sidearm there. So Mitch was just short left. He's in some trees, but not a big deal. Mitch has got that. He's a great putter. I tap mine in dead center-ish, maybe left almost out. And Dutch will knock his in, no surprise, because he is on fire. John will tap in for 3, and that is our first 7 holes. So if you want to take a look here at the scorecard, we've got some good action going on. I'm 4 under through 7. Dutch, if you count down there, is, what is that? Perfect. 7 under through 7 holes. So great work from Dutch as we move on to hole number 8, which is a par 4 with water on the left, about 390 feet off the tee, maybe 380, and also water short of the basket that you have to carry on your second shot. So Dutch just pures that one. Beautiful sidearm. I don't know if I've ever seen Dutch throw so many sidearms, but he was doing it great. I went with a thumber with that Opto Spark. Mitch is going backhand here. Catches one on the right side. If you see that white sign all the way down at the end of the fairway there, that is where the water is. The first water that's in play on this one. It's just past that. So John throws a pretty good drive, but he is flirting with that water. He doesn't know if it's in or out. So just shrugs his shoulders and just moves on with it. Mitch throws a great second shot here. Just lays it up exactly like you want to. Even if you have a good drive, that's a good spot to be. So I got a little aggressive here. I needed to hit that gap and turn over hard right. And I didn't want to hit that Y tree in the middle, so I pulled it just a hair. Caught the left side of that tree on the right, and it kicked me twice, and then went through some shrubbery and found that little lake on the left. Not the lake you're looking at here, but that lake there. So I am in that lake, and my throwing judge is out of here. And so I'm throwing the Cenis down by the creek and trying to throw it over the lake and trying not to get the duck itch. It was just a nightmare scenario on this hole for me. But that's what you get when you get really aggressive on a very dangerous hole. So after a good tee shot, I could have totally just laid up and had one of these jump putts like these guys for birdie and tapped in for easy par. But this is to save bogey, and I'm able to knock it in there. I was right at the circle's edge for that putt. A lot of circle edge putts for me today, and glad I could put that one in to save my 5. You never want to get a 6, but you also don't want to throw it in the water when you've thrown a great drive. But what can you do? It's disc golf. John with another perfect line that hits just low. He looked pretty glad that it didn't roll back in that green muck. And Dutch taps in for his first par of the round, but not exactly a loss. He made the smart decision, especially after watching me bounce off that tree and kick OB. Very smart play from Dutch. So we're here on hole 9, and Dutch is first to tee, of course. Hole 9 is moved to the far left position, which makes it pretty tough to get to. You want to just smash it almost past all those trees and to that wood line and then fade left. I'm going to go with a Lucid Defender here. And to be honest, I thought I killed this drive.
Yeah. I don't know.
Until it got knocked down, I saw a little piece of lettuce fall from the sky and heard a little something. That's when I knew it got knocked down. But it'll still put me in jump putt range, and my jump putt's been feeling pretty good so far this last month or so. So Dutch putts, and he almost goes OB there. So didn't really realize OB was that close, but it's probably only 10 feet, maybe 12 feet at most from the basket. So I'm the only one left with a chance for birdie. And wow, if that's not unfortunate, I don't know what is. Just missed the flag on top, caught a skip. And there's no OB line over here. There's no OB rope, but there are white stakes. And this white stake on the right here is sticking out extra far. So basically I'm just going to have to call that OB, and it's a tough break. It was clearly OB from how the stakes were. So that's a really tough break when I was looking at a 2 and end up with a 4. Everyone else is going to tap in for a 3. Alright, so Dutch has still only missed 1 hole as we move on to hole 10, affectionately known as the bowl hole, because it sits in a giant bowl surrounded by logs. Mitch goes with a mid-range outside.
Oh!
And if you see Mitch's face, it looks like deja vu. We're not sure if it went in or not because you can't see the basket from here. But it sounded like a putt going in, so we're just going to assume that it's in. John's going to follow up with a sidearm. John apparently does not throw many sidearms, so this sidearm here from John is very good, and it's going to get him up there in range. I try to go with a thumber up the middle, but just throw it a bit too high. I had the right line, but it's got to be lower to get to the pin. So Mitch runs up there. He asks if he can run up there first, being very polite, and sure enough, it's in there. So Mitch gets another ace on camera here, or not on camera, if you want to call it that way. But he doesn't seem to care. He's happy nonetheless. So if you see the orange flag up there, that's 60, so I'm about 80 feet out. And I'm just going to jump putt it into the bowl and get away with my par here. So after Mitch was on the roller coaster ride early in the round, it seems to have switched to me. He's went to birdie and ace mode, and I'm finding some bogeys here. John with a great putt. And Dutch, go figure, another good birdie putt. This time straddle putt from a knee. And Dutch, after only missing 1 hole, is gonna lose the tee pad because Mitch hits that ace. So after the bowl hole with the basket down in the hole. Now we play the basket that is chained up and hanging from a tree. You're going to see most people throw a sidearm here, but Mitch goes with the backhand. And Dutch, who's been throwing sidearm very well this round, is going to pull it out again and absolutely pure it. You can't really see the basket from here, but it is up in the top right hand corner of the screen. And John's sidearm goes a little early, but we don't hear anything, so I believe it cuts through those trees and gives him a putt. I'm going to go with a beat up stiletto, but it just comes out with too much hyzer, so I'm just going to have to chip up with my judge. And if you see there, somehow it magically jumps up and skips over the logs. So I have the jumping judge putter. Could be really handy in some situations, but not today. John knocks in his putt. He gets back-to-back birdies with sidearms. So pretty impressive from John there after not throwing any sidearms to come out and go birdie-birdie with him. Mitch misses his just a little low, and actually I thought Mitch would wait because the basket was still moving from the last person getting their disc out. And then I go and do the same thing. The basket's still moving just a bit, and I hit it just a little off to the right, and it doesn't catch. This time Dutch steadies the basket for me, and it goes in there, but that is a bogey. So I'm trying to avoid a downward spiral here. But Dutch is still riding high, and we move on to one of the coolest holes on the course. It is a par 4, and I believe it's about 650 feet. And you have to hit a very tight gap off the tee, and then you have to carry a lake, and then you have another tight gap to hit. Dutch pulls this one. It's the first bad shot of the round, but he finds that tiny little window and gets up there through both gaps. And doesn't skip left, which if this hole wasn't hard enough, or this tee shot rather, if you do hit both gaps and then skip left, you can go OB. So Dutch is going to have a really good position. John throws one safely up the middle. And now we got Mitch, who throws a pretty good looking shot, has a little too much turn, and kicks towards what is a Mando over there, but I do believe he's safe. I'm getting attacked by a horsefly here. Every time I try to stand up and throw, he is attacking me. And if you see right here, he lands on my back right before I throw. Luckily, I pull out my sneakiness and go right through that stuff. So a good break there after a couple bad holes in a row for me. And it will get me up there just ahead of the second gap. John will be furthest out, but he's in a pretty good spot. However, if he hyzers at any point during this shot, he has to run the risk of going out of bounds. And if he goes to the right, he has to carry this small OB creek. So basically there's OB everywhere. If you don't throw it straight up the middle here with a little right turn, you're in trouble. So John comes out just a little bit left. It looks like it's going OB, but it barely turns enough to keep him in bounds. And there's that Mando tree I was talking about. Mitch is kind of stuck right behind it. He's just going to have to pitch out with a sidearm. So my line here is basically going to be over the trees on the left that are out of bounds with a thumber. I didn't want to hit my hand on that tree, so I really had to throw a big sidearm angle. And it carried a little further left than I was anticipating, so I was a little worried it might go out of bounds. But it was just enough to get back inside the circle. And if you hear Dutch there, he says he pulled the second one in a row. So after not throwing any bad shots all day, he pulls two in a row and sneaks away with both of them. And it's going to give him a putt for birdie. Mitch, on the other hand, jumps right back on that roller coaster and catches one of those little bitty like bushes sticking out of the OB creek there, and it keeps him from getting out the other side. So anything inside the tall grass is basically OB. There is a OB line marked off there. John misses his birdie putt. Now we've got me right at the circle's edge. And I'm able to stick that birdie putt in there to hopefully reverse this bogey flow that I have going. And we've got Dutch, who's trying to make good for another birdie. Still only one par in his round. You can see in the background there, that is the McCircus. following the one and only Paul Macbeth. And we have a great putt from Dutch to continue the fantastic round. I have to say, this is one of the best starts I have ever seen in a tournament. We've played, I believe, 11 or 12 holes, and he has only missed one. So if you see Mitch's face right there, you can tell that he is pained because he has just taken a 6. And after all those birdies and the ace, he's taken another number, so he has to try and get back on track again. Now we're on the world famous driving range hole, which has been modified to a very elevated tee this year, and it's really cool. We had a tailwind today, so I was trying to pound one over the OB, which is all the tall grass. Unfortunately, my ballista turned in that wind and just went straight down. Right here you can check out old man John Drummond just smashing one. I mean, the guy threw it with all hyzer, it didn't look like he put any power in, and he cleared the 500 mark with ease. So Mitch steps up and takes out a little bit of anger from that last hole and clears the OB ditch himself, which means he's getting over there close to 500 feet. I'm over here shy of the 400 foot range, and I happen to hit the top of that bush right in front of me, and that's gonna probably put me in the OB, I don't know, wetland area, short right at the basket. There's also OB right behind the basket, but basically you have a fake OB pond short right of the basket, and I guess just short of the basket. So the smart play is to play over to the left. But I was trying to play aggressive, and it definitely bit me on this hole. So after Mitch's great drive, he throws his second shot, and it's just a little long. He was concerned that it went out of bounds. I told him it wasn't, and it ended up just short of the OB line, and we'll give him a chance for birdie. After John smashed there, man, he was probably just throwing like a mid-range or something. He was probably only about 330 feet from the pin. Actually, probably 280 feet from the pin now that I look at the signage there. And Mitch is able to just knock one in, little jumper from outside the circle. Very, very key to get a birdie on a hole like this right after you take a 6. So great rebound from Mitch. That'll get him back in the game. And what do you know, Dutch knocks in another putt. Dutch is just absolutely on fire. And we move on to the island hole, which is a tough one. And it's going to be the last hole of this video. So it's only 280 feet, or so the scorecard says. Plays a little bit longer than that, and we had a stiff headwind, as you can see from the Prodigy banner blowing there behind Mitch. Dutch pulls it a little left, catches some wind, but it does sit down, and he will land inbounds and have a putt for the deuce to continue the amazing round. Mitch throws a perfect looking shot, and he is parked up there for a birdie. Now we've got John. The wind changed just a little bit at this point, and John's hung out just a little bit to the right. It still felt the same, so I went with the same looking shot as the other guys, thinking it was going to push a little left, but mine, just like John's, did not push left and held out just a little right. And this being a sod farm, you have sod, and it doesn't skip very well, so neither one of us are able to skip back in bounds, and we're both looking at 45, 50 foot jump putts from the drop zone to try and save par. And John is able to knock it in there and save his par. I go with a step putt from the back of the drop zone and also knock it in with my judge and save my par. Dutch is looking at about a 25 footer to continue the amazing round. This is to be 13 under after 14 holes. And Dutch knocks it in there. So that is actually Dutch's 12th birdie in our first 14 holes, and so he will be 12 under, and the rest of us are going to manage 1 under in very different ways. Mitch and myself both riding the roller coaster, John a more steady 1 under, but we're all just watching Dutch tear it up. So After those 14 holes, we're going to take a break, and I will be back with the other 8 holes. And make sure to check back Matt Dollar Disc Golf on YouTube for the other rounds from the Majestic. Thanks to Latitude 64 for their support, and thanks to Carla Seward for filming, and also to Kale LaVisca and Airborne for running this event. Please check back for more Disc Golf Pro Tour action.